welcome everybody to the February 18th version of the Great Barrington Affordable Housing Trust Fund meeting. Um, it's now 6:33. We have a quorum. Uh, I could go ahead and read all the stuff, but in attendance on Zoom is myself, Fred Clark, Joseph Method, Bill Cook, and Peter Most. We have a sufficient quorum to get started. I don't have the governor's orders in front of me. If anybody needs me to read them, please let me know. But I think we've heard them and memorized them all at this point. With us tonight, we have Brett Roberts from Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, who would like to talk about a home modification program. And Brett, I promised you we would get you on first, and this is about as early as it can. I don't know if I can pull up the document.
Yeah, I don't, if people, I know it's also on your agenda, so I don't know if people have the agenda open, they can go to the second page of that agenda as well. Um,
Let's see, what was it called? I'm sorry, I just got out of work, so
you're fine.
I'm kind of
Do you?
running behind schedule. I work on Tuesdays, and
Oh, that's fine. I
I'm a
can,
little behind schedule. I've got it. Just give me a second.
and I can also just talk about it too if that works for you while you pull that up.
Uh, yes, would
Oh,
you
there we go.
mind
Perfect.
talking about it? Can people see that? Is that sufficiently
I can
Yes.
see it. Yep.
Yeah, I can see
good?
it.
Um,
I have
You
it
can
up. Press the full screen button if you want.
I could press the full screen button. Let's see, the full screen button is.
In that toolbar right there. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Perfect.
So, Brett, thank you for joining us. Thank you for thinking of us to tell us about this important program. So please go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. Thanks, everyone, for allowing me to take some time this evening. I won't take too much time because I also have to go up the mountain to Mount Washington tonight for a meeting, so a busy evening on my end as well. My name is Brett Roberts. I'm a senior planner at the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. My area is really focused on housing, so I say typically most of, about 50% of my job is kind of that traditional housing components, things like housing production plans, housing needs assessments, that sort of thing, but also I run a few different programs in Berkshire County around financing home rehabilitation, CDBG funds, as well as this home modification loan program that I'm going to talk to you about tonight. So the HMLP program, as we like to call it, is a home modification loan program that is state funded, and it essentially is a way for us to provide individuals who might be aging or who are living with disabilities to stay in the homes and in the communities in which they choose to live. So as many of us know, old New England homes often don't lend themselves to aging in place or to individuals living with disabilities. And so this is a way the state has allowed funds to be directed towards those individuals and those households to make their homes more accessible in the long run. So how this works is essentially you can see on the list here kind of possible modifications, anything like bathroom and kitchen modifications. That's things, making doors wide, bringing counters down. We see a lot of folks who have these beautiful clawfoot tubs that they loved in their, 20s and 30s, but don't love so much at 60 and 70. And so that's some ways to modify the home. Really, as you think about your house, any project that would make getting in and out of your home more accessible is an eligible cost. So think about, if you are driving in your driveway, it's a steep grade, maybe it's gravel. That might not be conducive for you if you're in a walker or a wheelchair to get in your home. The path to your home, we can pay for a paved walkway into your home, ramps, railing on your deck or in on your stairs going into your home, widening the doorway of your home, and then again, bathroom and kitchen modification once you're in your home. Um, Things like stair lifts, inside and outside stair lifts are all eligible expenses. We also have things like, as you can see, sensory or therapy spaces for individuals who might need those sort of modifications to their home. Hardwired alarm system, fences we've done quite a bit of. And this is the one that I think is most exciting is the accessory dwelling units. We're one of the few state programs that can actually pay for accessory dwelling units. And you might be thinking, how on earth does that help with accessibility? If you think about, maybe an older individual who's starting to deal with dementia and they need a home healthcare worker, or they might need a child to come live closer to them. But as we know, it's hard to find housing in Berkshire County. Building an ADU or putting up an ADU, whether it's attached or detached, um, would allow someone to have that full-time healthcare close by, and that is an eligible expense under this program. So that's kind of the projects that we focus on. The other side of this is how it's actually structured. So as you can see that loan information on the lower left side, these are loans between $1,000 and $50,000. It's 0% interest, no monthly payments or interest accrue. Um, the time that you pay back that loan is at the time of sale or transfer of property. So these is typically for folks who know this is their forever home. They know that when they sell their home, a portion of that sale profit can go back and pay this loan off at the end. We also do things around manufactured homes. So that's up to $30,000. We can also work in that realm as well. We also work with landlords as long as they have fewer than 10 units. They do have an interest rate along with those loans, though. It's a little bit different how that's structured. And then finally, I'll just mention too, this is based on income. However, if you see those income guidelines there, a household size of one, eligible gross income can be up to $228,000. So I'll just say that we have never hit that income limit. Um, if anybody has any questions about that, I can answer those. But that essentially is about 200% of the state's median income. And that's why the state has put that as a guideline. So if you're familiar with the Community Development Block Grant Housing Rehabilitation Program, that income level is much lower, and this just makes this a more accessible program to folks who might still be working and bringing in some income, and also, you know, large families that have a lot of folks in their homes. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions immediately about the program.
Um, hold on, I have to let
Oh,
another person in here. Um, Christina, if you rejoin us as a panelist, I will recognize you as your question. Go ahead, Christina. Christina is another member of our board. She's just joined us.
Hi, I just read that flyer. I didn't hear what you were saying, Brett. But my question is apropos the ADU in a home modification, because I was just talking to somebody about this, that rather than building the ADU to create the ADU in a house, does that will pay for that or only for outside ADUs?
No, it can be paid for. So how we would describe that is a detached ADU would be apart from the primary dwelling, so a different building, whereas a attached ADU would be kind of inside that building or kind of added on to that building. Any of those situations are eligible for these funds, as long as, as long as it's allowed in town, it's permittable, as we say. It is an allowed expense.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So, Brett, I have a couple of questions in terms of eligibility for this program. Do you have to meet any particular threshold regarding age or disability, or is it strictly based upon need? And
Yeah, so it's a good question. So, part of the application process is a professional form that we ask that you work with a professional of your choosing to qualify. So, essentially, what that typically looks like is an older individual going to their primary care doctor and saying, "Hey, you know I have mobility issues. Can you please sign this form that verifies that I need this type of modification?" Um, it doesn't need to be a doctor. It can be any sort of professional. We've had social workers, caseworkers, physical therapists, doctors, mental health therapists all sign off on these. But it just needs to be some sort of recommendation from a professional that this is a needed and required modification.
that's the threshold essentially.
Yes, that's
You
the
know,
threshold.
when we talk about ADUs, mostly we've been talking about them as supplemental income.
Hmm.
And there is a scenario where an older individual or couple or family has too much house.
Yeah.
It may have been fine when they had kids, but and they find that they can't either afford to keep it comfortably or just want some supplemental income.
Hmm.
We've been spending a great deal of time talking about incentivizing and encouraging
Hmm.
ADUs for that purpose. I'm guessing that that's not really within this umbrella.
So I actually would say it is. So let's and I wouldn't say that in all cases, to be clear, it has to be a specific case, but let's walk through one of those cases. So let's say two individuals have a two-story home and the modification that's needed is actually for them to essentially turn that two-story home into a ranch, right? So they want to bring bathrooms, bedrooms, everything down to the first floor and essentially close off the top floor. What they could do is they could pay for those modifications, including creating an ADU type unit on the second floor under this program. And that could be then um, additional income. However, keep in mind that the modification here is not for supplemental income or for, it is for them to it's for them to live on one floor. So, it's not going to be every situation like, oh yeah, of course we can do this for supplemental income. But if it's the right case where folks need to live on one floor or they need to adjust their current housing situation for their health, then it could be a possibility. I think I would rather, and I've said this everywhere I've talked, I would rather folks come to us with any scenario and we can tell them, yes or no, than to assume that it's not eligible and then it actually be eligible.
Or fit them into another program. I mean, that's
Exactly.
often what happens too.
Yeah.
So
I
I
have
have
a couple
a question.
follow ups, but I want to ask Christina to jump in.
Um, so I kind of following Fred's question. So say the reason why they want to modify is because they know somebody who needs affordable housing. I mean, I'm kind of bringing it to our ADU program. Would that, who is older, who can't afford other housing? So would that person, even if it's not disabled, but it's older and can't afford any other housing?
Yeah, we have talked about this quite a bit. It would be eligible. We would need to have a conversation about what that looks like. Again, I would rather them come talk to us and let's work through those details than not. Typically, yes, that would be eligible. As long as we kind of think through the beneficiary component of that, right? So who is benefiting? Um, Understanding that the homeowner is the one who's going to be the 0% interest mortgage, right? Um, so as long as the beneficiary is okay with this and the homeowner's okay with this, we can absolutely have those conversations. Um, and again, it's not right for every situation, but in most cases it would be, especially if there's already an existing relationship between the homeowner and the beneficiary. The most common thing you see is often children coming back, right? And an ADU being created for kids who are coming back to the Berkshires. Vice versa is also applicable, right? I have, as a young person who has a home here, bringing my parents closer, creating an ADU for my parents as they age, that's eligible. So a lot of situations would be eligible under this program, and certainly the ones that you brought up just now.
Okay, great, thank you.
So, over the last couple of years, we've begun to expand our mission as an affordable housing trust. And part of what I would like, where I would like us to go, is to bring information about these programs, not necessarily as a gateway, but simply as maybe a billboard might be a better answer. We have a really dynamic website that you may have looked at that Bill Cook manages and designed. And on that, we enlist the community development block grant for the repair program. It's not our program, but
Yeah.
it's there to let people know. What I would like to explore with my committee is how housing trusts in general, and ours specifically, can get the word out more about all of the programs that are available. We know that if you go to Construct or if you go to CDC or some others, that they have this in their toolbox, but we want to make sure that it's widely spent. And I would love to have a conversation with you at some point about how we can do it not just for the Great Barrington Housing Trust, but maybe jointly for housing trusts across the county, and talk about things like access to first-time homebuyer loans or other kinds of subsidized mortgages or repair programs, things like that. I'm sorry, Joseph has a question.
Oh, I think I don't need to bring it up. I was thinking strategically about how you, um, uh, we have a loan program, and then we're talking about another source of funds, and we might actually tell people that their proposal will be more attractive if they go to this program first.
So what Joseph is mentioning is that you may have seen it, but we're piloting a program right now for an ADU incentive program.
Yeah.
We funded it up to $150,000. We engaged Construct to be the administrator of the program, and we're in the application period right now. We're just trying to work out the bugs and figure out what will help people, with that. But I think it's a bigger conversation that I have to have with my committee about where the housing trust wants to go. I'm personally really excited about not always being just a granting organization, not always just throwing money at things,
Yeah.
but also talking about connections with people. So I'm really
and also,
thrilled to hear about this.
Yeah, and I'll say I don't want to take too much more of your time here. I know it's like late night, but oftentimes how we view these things is this is a part of a larger package. So as you mentioned, the housing rehab program, we also run the housing rehab program in Sheffield, Beckett, Dalton, a few other towns. And we have found this pairs really well with that program. If we go into a home, and I've talked to Don Lemon with Berkshire Community Development about how this could work in Great Barrington and Egremont. In addition, if someone really, if someone comes to you with a proposal and we can match these funds, we would love to have that conversation. I think, the how can we make your funds go further is kind of our job at BRPC. So we'd love to have that conversation as you had that conversation. The last thing I'll say too about that like kind of larger affordable housing trust in the region, we're happy, I'm kind of the point for housing policy at BRPC. So Fred, keep me involved in those conversations. We'd be happy to kind of organize something. If it's like a training day, if it's like just a idea sharing session, that sounds like a great idea in my mind. And also, we've done this work in Egremont, their affordable housing trust. We've had conversations with other housing committees in Sheffield, for example, where I am now. So happy to entertain all these conversations going forward. But this program, the only ask I have of you is just if we could get it on your website, if you could put it in your back pocket to promote to folks, that would be great. And that's a great first step.
Well, you've made a really great flyer. I really have to commend you on your flyer. I think it has a lot of great information, and it's fairly easy to understand.
And
All
I
on the
and
page.
I forgot to say too, first of all, I didn't make the flyer, but I'll send my regards to the people who did. But I will drop off, I go through Great Barrington quite frequently, so I will drop off some flyers and some brochures at Town Hall. So they'll sit at Town Hall for folks to have as well.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Any other questions?
I have
If
one
you
more
need
quick question,
Yeah.
and I think
version,
both of you kind of alluded to it. Can the programs be combined, like our ADU with this one?
In my mind, they can. That will be on your end. That will need to be decided for sure.
Ed, what do you say about that?
I see no reason why they couldn't in principle.
Okay.
and I was just saying, if you have a digital version of the brochures, you could send those to me.
Yeah, perfect. I will do that.
Thank
Okay.
you very much, Brett.
Thank you. Have a great night, everybody.
Moving on to our agenda tonight, which in terms of North Plain Road, they've shut down for the winter. They did a lot of progress on that. They'll pick it up in the spring. They really got pretty far on that. Habitat's working through, is taking applications now and working with the first 5 or 6 homeowners for that site. I have a report on the Park Street Risingdale ball field that I could share with you. I submitted an application as the committee, we discussed, to Mass Housing Partnership. Mass Housing Partnership is our statewide affordable housing trust nonprofit support group. And so they have a person assigned as our Shelley Goring, I think Bill knows her. And they have a technical support system. What I asked for was technical support in the future, perhaps in the summer, perhaps in the spring, to have 1 or more community meetings with the purpose of exploring what type of housing, what kind of housing might be appropriate for the Risingdale ball field. And they do offer that service. They do not have a grant. They have, again, a 0 interest loan that they'll provide. Anytime they do staff work, that's free to us. That's part of our regular support network. But to hire a facilitator to run a meeting would probably cost in the neighborhood of $1,200 to $1,500. And that would be money that they would loan us on a 0 interest loan. And if we went forward with the project, they would set that up so that eventually the developer, whoever is successful with RFP, would pay that fee. Christina, you have a question? Do you want to wait?
No, it's actually not a question. It's something because you use the technical support. I think this is a good time to say that I've been applying for the grant for the Berkshire Taconic Community Foundation. And I was told by somebody that works there that there's 2 grants we as affordable housing can apply for. One is so-called planning and technical support that, for example, would pay for a consultant, for a grant writer, etc., etc. The other one that actually is done for this year. Unfortunately, I was going to write to you, but I was so busy I couldn't. And the other grant is on a rolling basis, and she told me absolutely affordable housing should apply for that one. That's called something like community fund, and it's on a rolling basis. And we can basically, she says, they are so all for affordable housing that we definitely have a big chance of getting that, like, for example, just for funds, for just supplementing our funds.
Okay, if you have contact information, if you could send that to me or let me know who that is.
Okay.
I'd be happy to follow, if it's the committee's pleasure, I'd be happy to follow up on that. I was quite frankly surprised that MHP, Mass Housing Partnership, didn't have a grant available, but only a loan. I was a little put off by that. I was hoping that they would give us more support. But so they did walk me through the whole process of what we would do. So I want to share that with you and make a proposal on where we're going to go with that project. I don't see any real urgency on that project. I think we need to be careful and judicious about how we proceed. What Mass Housing Partnership suggested was that we needed to do a little bit more pre-construction or pre-meeting work. In other words, look at the zoning code, for instance. Make sure we understand the engineering. The zoning code will provide us with what's a possible on the site. Look at precedents. Look at the availability of the utilities on the site. Look at the soil and any kind of obstructions or impediments going forward. And if the committee is okay, I will take that on myself. I think I have the technical ability to do that, and at a future meeting, give you a report. The idea that MHP was talking about was, before you have a community meeting, you should have 2 or 3 or a dozen or whatever ideas of what's possible. They said, we don't really want you to go into a community meeting and without some notions of options, so that people have something to react to, people have something they can modify. We don't want somebody coming in and saying, pie in the sky, wouldn't it be wonderful to do X? And we just need to set some realistic parameters as to where we would go going forward.
Regard to that, Fred, I think the planning board is working on a zoning thing for cottages.
I'm familiar. I've been at meetings.
Yeah, so that may be something that we would want to look at, especially if it does actually pass a town meeting, which is coming right up.
I like the idea of the cottages when they began to sketch it out. I haven't seen it as it's developed because I haven't been in a planning board meeting in a couple of weeks. But I think it's a really interesting idea. So
I think it's
more
really,
to come. More to come. We'll keep you informed.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember where I left the page. Does anybody have any other comments or bells they want to show? Bring.
Oh, I have one more question. Are we considered, because as far as I know, the the grants, when you apply to the Berkshire Community Taconic Foundation, um, the grants, you have to be non-profit. Can we be considered like a non-profit?
We are not a nonprofit because we are something different. We are a part of the,
We're a municipal entity.
we're a municipal entity. Thank you.
Contributions are tax deductible.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of
Something we can talk through about with them.
Okay. Yeah, well, she knew because she's my friend and she knew that I am on this committee and that's what she suggested. So she probably knows, but I don't know 100% that she knows because she hasn't been working there for so long. So,
So more on that when it comes. We're definitely going to solicit community input before we make any decisions. The piece of news that's different is that we have to do some homework. And I'd be happy to work with anybody else. I'm happy to take that on as a task. If any other member was interested in helping or reviewing that, I'd be happy to work with you.
I'd like to work on that, right?
Who's that?
That's Bill.
Bill. Yes, Bill, that would be great. Moving on. In terms of the ADU pilot program, Ananda has been primarily in touch. I don't know a whole lot about it. I did talk to the person at Construct or exchange emails with her at one point. I'm not even sure when the deadline is for that program.
Did you get copied on Ananda's email earlier this evening?
I did, but as I said, I was at work, so I really didn't. I didn't have a time to really look at it much.
Okay, I believe we had one qualified applicant, but I don't have all the information in front of me either.
I don't. Do you know when the deadline is, Bill?
Well, there was some confusion about that. It was supposed to be 3 months, but that was
Well,
not made clear, I think, in some of the advertising.
and
And
Anna and I both we talked about this in the interim here, and there was some confusion, and I actually was surprised when I talked to the people at Construct that they had no idea that there was a deadline. And Ananda got in touch with them and told them that it was a 3-month window.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be enough, but I know, somebody my wife knows is working on it, and she's having trouble getting the contractor to
estimate.
yeah,
yeah,
so and
pretty much everybody is.
Why do we have a deadline? May I ask?
we need to have a deadline because we don't have infinite funds. We don't want to keep this open as a rolling
Okay.
process. What we want to do is be able to learn from this process. So we felt like a deadline was necessary for that.
Thank you.
Financial report, there's no news to report. We, over the last month, the two down payment assistance programs that we signed in November, approved in November, closed. Those are now happy homeowners with our help. The CPA application that Ananda spearheaded was successful in terms of getting more money. CPA is recommending to town meeting $325,000 for our funding for next year. If town meeting approves, those funds would be available July 1st for spending. One of the things that Ananda wants to do is to come back and look at the RFP program that we operated last year, but come up with a more robust rubric. In other words, criteria for awarding at that point. So she will be working on that. She, in the email that Bill alluded to, she said that the schedule can be based upon the schedule that she included in the pages of the CPA application, which I believe you had. Let's see, do I have that?
When we get to that on the agenda, I have some thoughts.
Well, we can take things out of order, and I'm happy to do it right now.
Well, the RFP was basically geared towards developers.
Yes.
And I think it could be broader than that. I mean, I have had two people come to me saying when they die, they would like to leave their property to the trust because they have no children, but there's no program for that. We don't have anything to accommodate that. Also, I've had people approach me for they have property that they own that they can't afford to give to the trust, but they would like to sell to the trust because they would be happy to have it be, deed restricted as affordable. We don't have anything for that, so I'm thinking perhaps the ADU could be a lot broader and include some things like that, or maybe we need programs for that sort of thing. In fact, three people have said, now that I think about it, three people have actually said they would be interested in leaving their property to the trust, knowing that it would be permanently affordable. So I think it would be a great thing to have.
I am screen sharing, although I wish I could turn off this ruler. Let's see, view.
So there's a little arrow all the way to the right on the bottom corner of that upper thing. A little lower. Lower. You were almost on it.
It was covered by my Zoom screen.
Ah, there you go.
It was covered by my Zoom screen. Sorry. Turning off the ruler. Is this large enough? Can people see this?
Yeah.
I will share this with you if you haven't been shared already. This is very, very schematic in terms of looking at it. But it does talk about how the tasks and the things that we need to develop, and puts a date and a time for each task down. And so I think it's a really, really good place to start.
Yeah.
And to react against. Bill, in terms of the comments you just made, I basically agree with you. And I'm sure Ananda does as well. I think those are some of the conversations that we need to have, is what's the point of doing this? How broad do we want to be? I do think that we need to be conscious of the I don't know whether to say commitments or promises that we made to the CPA when they were considering and awarding this money in terms of what we would do with it. So we have to be conscious that the CPA has allowed us to look at this money and have certain requirements and needs. We don't have carte blanche to do whatever we want.
Right, but if someone wants to give us a house, it won't involve any CPA money.
Exactly.
um,
What would be the objection to that, Fred?
um, well, I actually had a conversation with one of the people that Bill's talking about. And this person, my thought about it is we don't really operate our own property. We are basically a granting authority. And that I'm not sure that we want to be in the landlord position of owning a house for an extended period of time, taking in rent, hiring a management company, that sort of thing. I think if we got a house or some, this person's still fairly young, the person I talked to, and if they, are doing this after their death, it's going to be some years from now. We can't really say what a future committee is going to be doing. Obviously, it would be deed restricted because that would be the condition of gift. But I can see us turning around and selling a house, or at least awarding it the way we did with Habitat.
Right.
The
I
other
think
house.
that's actually the way it would go. It would be a home ownership thing with a deed restriction. So the trust wouldn't really have to do much. Other than say, yes, we'll take your house. Thank you very much.
And I'm not sure the trust is the best place for the best landing place, but this
What would
person
be the
and
better
the
one?
lawyer seem to think it would work.
Yeah. But I think if there are people interested in doing that, we should have a method for them to do it. It may not be part of an RFP, but it could just be a little program that we say, okay, here's the legal stuff, here you go.
And I believe Chris Rambold was okay in principle with the town accepting a gift of a house.
Yes, and it would only stay in the town's ownership until it was sold to someone affordably and deed restricted, so they could only sell it to someone affordably.
Which, I mean, I think when, you and I, when we talked years and years and years ago, Bill, had talked about building up rolling funds that we would, buy, invest in something, sell it perhaps at a, less than we paid for it, but still sell it and turn those into rolling funds where you go ahead and do it again.
Right.
And, a lot of our down payment assistance is going to come back to us someday as a fund that we can use over and over again. And it's not a bad plan to do that, to help successive people. So
Anyhow, I think we should look into creating a program of some kind for donated property and property we may want to purchase.
Why don't we get town council on that?
I'm sorry, Peter. Every time you mention town council, I laugh. Sorry, I shouldn't do that.
No, it's a punchline.
Sometimes I think it is the punchline.
Well, they've got plenty of time. These people are still young. Oh, I got
Oh.
That's a good point, Bill. This may just work out perfectly.
Although I do have an 80-year-old, so
Oh, no, sorry.
that window's
That's not gonna work.
So I mean, the two parts of the Ananda's comments have to do with looking, how we plan our meetings going forward. We need to have a serious budget meeting. She put together a budget that was based upon $650,000. I think that can serve as a framework, but maybe with different numbers inserted, maybe different priorities. I don't know. But I don't think any one of us can do it unilaterally. I think we need to do it collectively. So I think one of the meetings that we need to have in the future is what are our priorities? Where should the money be going? Should we be funding more in one program than another? Should we, be planning for every homeowner in the Habitat project to have a down payment loan? Or should we be looking at, developing some new and exciting programs? And the other corollary, of course, is where do we get the most bang for our buck? How can we influence the market? I like to call it incentivizing, but how can we make our dollars work? And I think those are the discussions that we need to have. And I would say that that's should be the bulk of our work in the next couple meetings.
But do we want to do that ahead of knowing what we get from town meeting, or are we doing it in anticipation that what's been sent will be approved?
Town meeting is an up or down vote. They're not allowed to modify the amount. So I think we should be optimistic that we will be approved. And if we don't, we'll start over. We just, so it goes. So
Probably approved.
that's what I'm thinking about for going forward, is spending the bulk of our time looking at that. I hope that the next meeting we will have we'll have a report on the ADU pilot program. We all Ananda and I, as co-chairs, also received a letter from Jane Ralph from Construct talking about basically there's a crisis in home assistance programs, and she would like us to modify. And it sounded to me like the crisis had to do with less money going forward from the federal government because of the current administration. I think we need to have Jane come in and talk to us about what she's thinking. My reading of the email was that she's thinking that we should expand our program to be more broader, I guess would be the question. I have some concerns about that because I'm not sure what broader really means. I think it might mean a little bit less restrictive.
And by that, are you referring to AMI or something else?
No, I'm referring to the purpose of the funds. And I don't think we have the ability to do that. We are a housing group, so that we aren't going to be paying for groceries, or we aren't going to be
Okay,
doing some other
Right.
things like that.
right.
I
Okay.
think we have to be conscious of our mission. That's all. Those are the couple things that I think we should be talking about. What I'd like to do for homework for everybody is either Ananda or I will send out, well, she has sent out the rubric for the RFP, the ADU program. And she's suggesting that some of those criteria can be adopted for the RFP program. Bill, I'm interested in your ideas about how to broaden that program. So, from attending the CPA meetings, the pitch basically was that the Affordable Housing Trust should stand in the CPA's shoes and be the sole arbiter of CPA money going to affordable housing.
Yeah.
We've already been contacted by one developer in town who has a good reputation, asking if that program is operating, telling us that he has a project that he thinks it would fit into it. We've deferred speaking to him privately until we actually know we have a program, because I don't think we want to get into a situation of any kind of favoritism or anything like that. But I know there's at least one developer who would be coming forward with an application similar to the grant program that we did for the Housatonic apartments. There. The other thing that I put on the agenda was discuss mortgage home programs. There are a couple of programs such as the one by USDA that Bill's familiar with, and the Federal Home Loan Bank in Boston has a program throughout New England that is quite generous, but since they're talking about first-time home buyers or such, the money doesn't go very far. It's a once-a-year application deadline. The reason I put those on the agenda is, as I mentioned to Brett, I'm very interested in expanding the role of the Affordable Housing Trust to be a connector, to be an education vehicle, to help take a role in connecting people to programs that exist, not just in Great Barrington, but throughout the county, joining in partnership with some of our other affordable housing trusts. Hearthworks, which used to be Berkshire Housing, and BNR, the organization that Brett is from, are still are working here. They have these programs. A lot of us don't even know about it, and we're working on these issues on a regular basis. And I see us as a perfect vehicle to be able to get the word out. As you mentioned, as you heard from Brett, he would be very interested and very willing to talk about how that could happen. Do we get all the housing trusts together and talk about what's available for programs and come up with some kind of a shared program system? You know, even like our down payment assistance program, we've had a few instances where somebody will come to us about qualifications and we talk about what's required. Then they go out shopping for a house, find a house 100 yards away from the Great Barrington line in Egremont, and they can't go forward with the program. But what if we had a pledge from Egremont, from Stockbridge, from West Stockbridge, from some of these other towns that will pre-qualify this person for a down payment program before they go out shopping, so they can take that money, that pledge, if you will, and know that they're going to be able to afford a house. But what if they find that house in West Stockbridge instead of Great Barrington? Are they out of luck? Let's see if we can get some kind of a program rolling that is collaborative, so that each town housing trust is on board. Those are just the ideas that I have right now.
Great
Yeah,
ideas.
I think in that case, Fred, each town would have to have its own down payment assistance program because you can't use Great Barrington CPA money for something in Egremont or West Stockbridge. Not allowed.
As it happens, over the last 3 years or so, I've been invited to talk in Stockbridge, West Stockbridge, and Egremont, and have shared a lot of the programs that we're doing there. So they're familiar with at least what we're doing. I think West Stockbridge adopted a similar program. You remember, Bill, when we started, Bill and I are the only two members left from the very beginning. Then Bill started. But when the Great Barrington Housing Trust started, there was already an active housing trust in Lenox and another one in Williamstown. And they were extremely helpful in helping us to get started. I believe we borrowed some documents and wordsmithed them to fit Great Barrington. And we've done the same thing for several other towns. Let's figure out. All I'm saying is there's tons of resources out there. Maybe there's a role for us to play in pulling them together.
Yeah.
Great idea.
The mortgage originators, the mortgage bankers have been very helpful. There's a couple of banks that we've worked with in terms of the down payment assistance program who are committed to working and going the extra step for getting people in their houses. I guess I'm sort of thinking more about first-time home buyers and home ownership. I don't want to neglect the rental income, the rental programs as well. So, welcome your input for any of that. That's all I have for tonight. Are there any comments that any of the members of the panel want to make?
I would like to absolutely support the idea, especially the idea of cooperating between towns and also becoming like a hub of information. I don't know why we didn't do it before. I think it's fantastic idea to be like the hub of information.
Peter?
I wanted to say I watched your presentation to the select board regarding the affordable housing tax exemption, and I thought it was terrific. I'm very much in favor of that program. I hope the select board and then the town is as well. But I thought you did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me about that, and thank you, Peter. Joined in. Peter, as the members here, three of the people here were on the committee to draft the housing exemption, and it was on the agenda last week for the select board. Peter did comment as well. It was favorably received. The X factor, of course, is how much it's going to cost. I think the way it was left at select board was town staff is going to work on a cost implication, which will basically mean Peter and the assessor and I don't know whom else.
But of course, we get to decide, the town gets to decide at capping it, in applications in first. And, so it never has to break the bank or even come anywhere close to being painful. The program can be designed to fit our finances.
Well, yes, but as you know, the select board and the finance board are meeting tonight to discuss the budget. Last year was a brutal budget year. This year promises to be even a more
Right.
extreme budget year. Quite frankly, the schools are killing us, but that's not appropriate for this discussion. I think that, Peter, it might make sense if you and I, or maybe you and Bill, make an arrangement to talk to Chris about how to shape and understand that tax exemption
Right,
program.
and the difficulty is, it may well be nobody applies for these funds. We don't know, it's a lovely idea that can be impactful. We don't know if anyone would actually apply for them. So maybe if either of you, I would love to join one of you to chat with Chris about being able to have the program and an understanding that, obviously the funds would revert to free cash or what have you in the event that they're not called for.
I guess that's homework. Obviously we're cognizant of Chris's time serving in probably 3 different roles right now, all of them demanding full-time attention.
Would you and like Bill and I to put our heads together on this, or would you like, or it could be the two of you. I just think this is an important idea that we don't want to let.
I think one of the chairs should be involved
Okay.
as well.
But let me know if you'd like me to help in any way. I'm happy to do so.
I think we need to flesh it out a little bit more. I don't think we can just give it to them and say, here it is. I think that there's certain things that we need to be cognizant of. I'm using that word 3 times tonight. Aware of. One is how much staff time would be required to administer the program. Those are things that are very real. We can't just ask staff members to take on one more thing all the time.
Would the Affordable Housing Trust Fund be able to have a trustee review on behalf of the town applications, vetting them and asking questions, and therefore providing a package to the town in order to reduce the burden on the town?
I've not seen that model acted out in any other town. It's an interesting idea. I had not thought of it in that way. The way that most of these programs work is usually the assessor or someone designated reviews an application.
But there are some initial steps that may not require that. Again, I don't want to take everyone's time, but we might be able to help the town by we review applications for mortgage assistance. We're not uncapable. That's a word. We are capable of reading. English is like a second language to me.
And then they have to create the application, of course. That's the other thing.
Actually, the application there's a standard form that already
Really?
exists.
Oh, okay, great.
Bill, did you want to say something?
No, that was all.
Okay, those are the things that I have. I do want to say, since Peter reminded me about that, is I do see us kind of taking on a new role, not just regarding the Berkshire Regional Planning Home on modification, but things like working with the planning board to enable mobile homes and those kinds of things to be made available that Joseph and Peter worked on. And is that our new role? I mean, are we comfortable with that? Do we want to keep doing that? I think that it's good for us to be good partners with the other boards in town.
I don't know if your question was rhetorical. If it wasn't, I would say any way that we can facilitate housing in Great Barrington for those that need housing on an affordable basis, that's our lane, and we should be there.
Well said. Any other comments?
One,
Bill?
should I go ahead and add the DNRC home modification thing to the website?
I don't see that it's a problem. I think it's similar to the block grant program.
Me too.
As I told Brett, I think that there's one page info is well done.
Yeah.
If you need contact information for Brett, let me know. So,
Okay.
Anything else? How about our attendees, Amy or James? Either of you interested in speaking? I'll let you. I see no indication. Okay. Amy, you're allowed. I said you can talk now or something. Amy,
Oh,
turn.
okay. Sorry, I just I'm having a meeting tomorrow night with our planning board in Dalton, and I saw something about tiny houses. So, I love tiny houses, and I wanted to know what that was all about. Something about letters? Tiny house letters?
What?
Yeah, what I put on the agenda had to do with a report. Over you've been copied on a lot of this information going back to last spring, where the Affordable Housing Trust sent a letter to the planning board, followed up with in about a year ago, and followed up in August with another letter about making some changes to the zoning code. The first one was to allow manufactured homes, otherwise known as mobile homes, in Great Barrington. Right now, they're completely prohibited. And the second one was changing the definition of a tiny house based on the number of square feet. I believe our zoning code, and Peter, remind me if you can, says 400 square feet maximum for a tiny house.
That's correct.
This initiative says it doesn't make sense to us to leave it at 400 square feet. Why limit it that way? I think as we got into it a little bit deeper, much of the industry uses the 400 square foot number.
That's what we discovered, and that's what the planning board discovered as well.
Yeah, that's the jumping off place between like a park model and a manufactured home. It's 400 square feet.
So it's kind of moot at this point. We went down that road with the planning board. We explored any possibility of broadening the model, broadening the requirements of Great Barrington, but in the end of the day, we decided collectively that we shouldn't be changing the whole industry. So,
Well, I mean, a park model can be 400 square feet. So, you know, technically you could do it as a tiny house.
you are absolutely right.
So I don't know why you would need to change it. It's just nomenclature at this point.
I think that's what we decided.
He meant that we should be expanding that size, and it turned out that basically tiny house is 400 square feet, no more. But you know, it would be great if we could expand it at least to 600 because it's a very small space, you know.
But well, any case, thank you for your input.
Thanks.
And media time, any media time? Hearing none. Good night, everybody. I'm one thing before we go. I'm going away the beginning of March. I'm flying back on the Tuesday that we have the meeting. And hopefully I will be home in time. But I wonder, Bill, if I could ask you to run the Zoom for the March meeting.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you do it already, or be the host.
That's fine.
Because I think I'll probably end up joining, but probably late.
Yeah. I mean, Amanda could also, as vice chair, do it, but if she's not up to it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Everyone have to depart. Thank you.
Good night now.
Good night.
Let me know.